Diversity in a team stems from differences in demographic, psychological, and organizational characteristics. Research reveals that various effects of this diversity on teams is dependent on how the research is conducted, the type of diversity examined, and the type of tasks performed. In most cases, diversity is a benefit once a team learns how to create a context that supports it. A team with diverse members performs better on decision-making, problem-solving, and creativity tasks. Diversity in a team can lead to problems caused by misconceptions about others and competition among subgroups. These problems disrupt team communication and reduce the ability of the team to fully utilize its resources. Diversity problems are unlikely to go away by themselves, but actions can be taken to help teams improve relations among their members in order to gain the benefits of team diversity. We are going to look at these concepts in Chapter 13. Understanding diversity in work teams is important because of the increasing number of women and ethnic minorities entering the workforce. Women and ethnic minorities are now in all levels of the organizational hierarchy and no longer primarily work only in certain types of jobs. In today's organizational environment, diversity occurs in jobs in all areas of organizations. Age or generational diversity is also increasing in organizations. People are living longer and retirement ages are being extended. The relationship between younger and older workers is changing as generations are more likely to work together because organizational hierarchies are flatter. New technology has reversed some of the differences between younger and older workers. For instance, younger workers may be more skilled with technology and may serve as mentors for older workers. Diversity is increasing by design as well. Organizations are recruiting a more diverse workforce to improve relations with customers. A design team does not create a car for male buyers only. Products must be sensitive to all potential customers. Increasing workforce diversity enables organizations to be more sensitive to the diverse markets in society. In addition, globalization is increasing diversity. As organizations become more global, their workforce must be able to interact in culturally diverse teams. Although we often think of diversity in teams of gender or ethnicity, three types of diversities affect teams and organizations. These include demographic, psychological, and organizational. Examples of demographic are gender, ethnicity, and age. These are things, for example, that you can tell by looking at someone. Psychological are values, personality, and knowledge. And organizational include tenure, occupation, and status. Table 13.1 presents an overview of these types of diversity. Demographic diversity relates to the social categories people use to classify others. In our society, distinctions of gender, race, ethnicity, nationality, age, religion, and sexual orientation are considered important in many situations, but that is not true in all societies or eras. For example, religion is more important demographic variable in the Middle East than in the United States. Differences among European immigrants were considered very important in the United States during the early 1900s, but these are not viewed as culturally important differences today. Psychological diversity relates to differences in people's cognitions and behavior. People vary in their values, beliefs, and attitudes. They may be conservative or liberal, religious or not religious, risk-oriented or risk-averse. People differ in personality and behavioral styles. As discussed in earlier chapters, people may be competitive or cooperative, assertive or aggressive. Finally, people differ in task-related knowledge, skills, and abilities. Team members may be technical experts, have artistic skills, or communicate well, for example. Finally, organizational diversity is caused by differences in a person's relationship to an organization. Factors such as organizational rank, occupational specialty, department affiliation, and tenure are examples of organizational variables. These variables primarily affect the individual's status in the organization, which has important consequences for how people interact in teams. Occupational differences relate to differences in language or terminology that may lead to miscommunication, while power differences may disrupt the team's communication processes. The types of diversity vary in how easily they can be observed. Diversity based on age, sex, or race can be considered surface-level factors as opposed to deep-level factors like psychological variables. Surface-level factors affect people immediately. People who are similar in surface-level factors are more likely to be initially attracted to each other and form stronger social attachments. Deep-level diversity takes time to recognize. Consequently, the effects of these deep-level differences on teams takes time to develop. Although when people think about diversity, they often only consider surface-level factors, it is deep-level diversity that has the strongest positive impacts on team performance. There are two ways to view how diversity affects a team. The trait approach assumes that diversity affects how people act. In other words, people with different backgrounds have different values, skills, and personalities. These differences affect how they interact in a team. The expectations approach focuses on the belief that people have about what other people are like. These expectations change how they interact with people from different backgrounds. As people work together in a team, they develop a sense of identity with the team, which becomes stronger as the team becomes more cohesive. Over time, members develop emotional bonds, create a common language for communicating, and share experiences. This leads to a convergence of attitudes, beliefs, and values that reduces the importance of background differences among members. Although continued interaction affects some types of diversity, it does not affect all types. Interaction does not change people's personalities, their specialized skills, their races, or their ages. However, it does not have to change these characteristics to reduce the impact of diversity. People identify with a team to the extent that membership is emotionally important to them and they care about its collective goals. One implication of team formation is that team members shift their social categories and create a new social identity. Members working together in a team develop the category of teammate. This category can become emotionally more important than the other ways that members previously categorized the people on the team. There are several ways of viewing the causes of diversity problems. One view sees diversity as arising from our cognitive processes and as an artifact of our need for social classification. This misperception creates interpersonal problems in the team. A special case of this misperception by the team leader. An alternative view sees diversity as due to the power conflicts arising from intergroup competition. Another view believes that diversity problems, rather than being caused by psychological issues, reflect power struggles between groups. Diversity is a social construction based on our cognitive processes. People categorize their world into groups and treat the members of those groups differently based on their categories. These categories are relatively arbitrary. For example, we are more likely to categorize people in ways that are easily observable, such as race rather than religion. Once these categories are formed, they have important implications for how people perceive and interact with each other. Social perception is the process of collecting and interpreting information about others. The primary reason people categorize others is to simplify our world. Dividing people into categories makes it possible to predict what other people are like. It is a simplification, often not very accurate, but an unavoidable component of human cognition. The problem with social perception is that it leads to premature judgments about what others are really like. Stereotypes are cognitive categorizations that describe people in preconceived groups. Stereotypes may be positive, negative, or both. For instance, people may believe that engineers are very analytical, and this may be a good or bad attribute depending on the context. Stereotypes make people in a category seem similar to one another, yet different from us. The social perception and categorization process by itself isn't bad. It helps people interact with others. The problem is that the process creates inaccuracies and biases that lead to misconceptions. Table 13.2 shows a common set of perceptual biases that negatively affect how we perceive others. From these biases, it's easy to see how our social perception can err. The problem of diversity is more than just categorization and perceptual biases. When people classify others, they divide their social worlds into in-groups and out-groups. This cognitive distinction has an emotional component. We view the group that we belong to, which is our in-group, more positively, and we like, trust, and act friendlier toward in-group members. The addition of an emotional component to our categories shows how stereotypes become prejudice and discrimination. Prejudice is an unjustified negative attitude toward a group and its members. Prejudices typically are based on stereotypes. They may lead to discrimination if there is social support for negative behavior toward the outgroup. As mentioned on the previous slide, these are common errors that cause diversity issues. The first impression error is the tendency to base judgments on our first impressions and ignore later information that contradicts these judgments. Once we form a positive first impression, we create the circumstances to justify that first impression. The fundamental attribution error is the tendency to explain why someone is acting in a particular way by using personal rather than situational explanations. We tend to explain other people's behavior using personality traits and demographic variables rather than looking at situational causes. The similar to me effect is the tendency to view people who are similar to us in a positive light. The halo effect is once we have an overall positive or negative impression of someone, we assume that they are good or bad at everything. For example, if we like someone, we often assume they are competent and dependable. And finally, the selection perception. This is the tendency to focus on and remember only information that confirms our beliefs and to ignore information that contradicts them. A large number of studies on the effects of diversity on teams produced inconsistent results. Part of the problem is the difference between short-term laboratory research on teams and the study of actually working teams. Homogeneous teams function better in the short run. However, many of the problems with diversity are related to miscommunication that reduces or disappears over time. To clarify the research on the effects of team diversity, several meta-analyses have been conducted that examine more than 100 studies. Two main theoretical perspectives are used to help explain the inconsistent effects of diversity on teams. The information decision-making perspective states that differences in knowledge, skills, and perspectives may lead to higher quality and more creative decisions and improved performance. The social categorization perspective states that differences among team members may lead to in-group, out-group divisions within the team that decrease team member friendships, trust, and cooperation, and thus disrupt the group processes. These different theoretical perspectives led to separating the research studies on the effects of diversity in teams by the types of diversity and the types of tasks the team is performing. One of the most basic divisions, which we discussed earlier, of diversity is by personal attributes or surface level diversities versus functional attributes or deep level diversity. Personal attributes include differences in personality, values, and various demographic variables such as age, gender, and race. Functional attributes concern knowledge, abilities, and skills relating to the work environment and differences in perspective about task issues. Surface level diversity may lead to problems with communication and team cohesion and increasing conflict, but often has mixed or limited effects on overall team performance. Deep level diversity has positive effects on team decision making, creativity, and performance. The positive effects of diversity are more likely to occur in some type of tasks. Diversity improves problem solving and decision making, tasks that require creativity, complex tasks, and less routine work. There are several moderating variables that impact how diversity affects teamwork. Teams that work cooperatively on interdependent tasks generally benefit from diversity. Teams with a learning orientation that engage in team reflexivity activities are more likely to benefit from diversity. Time working together reduces the negative social impacts of surface level diversity while increasing the value of deep level diversity. As expected, teams in diverse organizations that value and support diversity are more effective at delivering the benefits of diversity. As we continue to look at the research on the effects of diversities on teams, Let's look at Harrison and Klein's study from 2007. They developed an alternative approach to understanding the effects of diversity on teams by classifying the types of diversity as separation, variety, and disparity. Separation is differences on a particular attribute along a horizontal dimension, such as beliefs, attitudes, and values. Variety is categorical differences, such as professional background or expertise, and disparity is differences along a vertical dimension, such as status or power. Separation negatively affects teams by reducing cohesiveness and increasing conflict, but it does improve decision making. Variety has positive effects on teams by improving creativity, innovation, and decision making, although it may increase task conflict. Disparity has the most negative impacts on teamwork because it creates more competition, reduces communication, and promotes social withdrawal. The research also showed that diversity of multiple types can occur at the same time. For example, ethnic differences can be a variety such as type of ethnic background, separation such as linked to differences in values, and disparity, which is differences in status among ethnic groups. The impact of diversity is context dependent. It depends on the team's purpose, members' beliefs, and how diversity is managed. For example, ethnic differences may lead to disagreements on some issues, but may not be relative to other team activities. There are cases when diversity is created for a purpose. Cross-functional teams are a good example of diversity by design. The complexity of organizations and the tasks they perform often require cross-functional teams. For example, when an organization designs a new product, the design team often includes members with different technical skills, such as electronics, materials, and programming, because of the complexity of the product. The design team may include members from different departments, for example, marketing, engineering, and manufacturing, to ensure that the innovation is supported by the entire organization. The diversity in cross-functional teams relates to both functional and organizational diversity. Cross-functional teams are highly valuable because they bring together knowledge and expertise that exists throughout an organization. The integration of information in these teams promotes new product development and encourages organizational learning. However, cross-functional teams are often difficult to operate because of the competing viewpoints that are necessary for creativity. They create conflicts that hurt team relationships. The diversity of viewpoints in these teams is crucial for their success, but success only happens if team members are willing to share their knowledge and learn from each other. This concludes Chapter 13. Please let me know if you have any questions.